Is America in decline? It's a popular topic today as the world's only superpower struggles with debt, slow economic growth, an overstretched military, and political gridlock in Washington. American optimists say the United States has just hit a rough patch. But there are real questions about America's leadership in the world. And with me to discuss all of this are historian and author Simon Schama and foreign affairs columnist for the Wall Street Journal, Bret Stephens. Thank you both for joining us. So, is America in decline? You know, there's a slew of books which are hitting the bestseller targets. Is it hysteria or is it real, Simon?
Well, you know, historians are always going to say it depends what you mean. I mean, compared to Rome, were not expanding. How about that? You know, sort of the law of historical physics.
Compared to 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just the way the world is, and we're in a kind of very constricted economic period. There are two things, really, which the rest of the world will see as telling you something about American power, and how either this president or his successor plays it, you know, will be very important. One is Afghanistan. That will be seen by the rest of the world as a defeat. It really will. Yeah, but it's no good saying it's just a retreat. The other, I promise not to go on more than a second, Bret. The other is simply, is the American economic model viable any longer to emulate? So that all depends on how we come out of recession, if indeed we do.
You know, I remember in college reading a historian named Mercy Otis Warren saying that we were about to see America rushing into the extremes of confusion and chaos. She lived in 1788. She was talking about the ratification of the Constitution. In the 80s, we had this very important book, or at the time important book, The Decline and Fall of Great Powers. There was a view that America was on the cusp of decline then. In fact, America went into 20 years of immense economic prosperity and prestige. So we see these predictions happening again and again, and repeatedly they're proved wrong. The other issue that's important with respect to China is, do people really want to follow the Chinese model? Look at what's happening in Burma. Even a dictatorship like Burma doesn't want to follow the Chinese.
Well, let me ask you that. Obviously, the Chinese, and a whole new study has been done, believes that they will supersede the United States, that it's a zero-sum game, and if the current economic and political problems in the United States persist, China could overtake the United States. You don't think that's possible, even though the GDP of the U.S. relative to China has really plummeted since 2003?
All developing countries have very fast, very rapid growth rates until they reach the technological frontier. You can't be a plagiarist forever playing copycat to established powers. Another thing that's important is that in every open society, we spend a lot of time focusing on our defects, on our problems, on our faults. That's what we do. That's what we're doing right now. The Chinese spend a lot of time advertising their strengths, but you're seeing right now in the power struggles with Bo Xilai, the deposed city chief of Chongqing, just the kinds of tensions that are boiling beneath the surface of the Chinese. So I think it's wrong to make these straight-line predictions that China will rise forever and America's in a kind of terminal decline.
So then where does all this fear and loathing come from? Because certainly the American people, and a vast majority of the American people, some 71%, according to the latest poll, thinks that America is in decline. And yet the President of the United States thinks otherwise. Listen to what he's just recently said.
Anyone who tells you that America is in decline or that our influence has waned doesn't know what they're talking about. That's not the message we get from leaders around the world who are eager to work with us. That's not how people feel from Tokyo to Berlin, from Cape Town to Rio, where opinions of America are higher than they've been in years.
So, Bret, who's right, the President or are the people of the United States talking themselves into some kind of decline?
Yeah, this is one of those rare occasions when I get to agree with Barack Obama, so I'm happy to take it. He's absolutely right. Look, America has serious problems. We have a huge entitlement state. It may be getting bigger, and we're looking at Europe and seeing where that entitlement state leads. We might have major problems being able to fund our military. There are the crises in Iran and elsewhere throughout the world. If you go back to the 1970s, you find much the same talk. Periods, bad patches, as you said at the beginning, which are mistaken for processes of kind of secular, constant decline. There's this talk that America no longer commands this predominant share of the global economy. Countries like Brazil are rising. Well, it's good that countries like Brazil are rising, and they're democracies, and we should welcome it.
And yet, to follow on something you said, does anybody want to follow another model? We're talking about American leadership. There is a big crisis in Syria right now. There is a perception that America is not leading, that it's just letting the situation happen, and in fact, Russia and China are sort of leading. What about that?
Well, I think America should be leading in Syria. There are 10,000 people who have been killed, and we called for Mubarak's ouster and worked towards it. We should be doing the same, or Gaddafi, we should be doing the same with Assad. But again, the question is, are you not content with the quality of American leadership right now, or do you think that this reflects deeper trends and irreversible trends in American life? And I would say it's the former, not the latter.
Well, we have a great opportunity in Syria as well as a duty. Russia and China are leading, if actually what you want to lead in is the repression stakes. So we have actually a perfect opportunity to actually make American values about against the ferocious atrocities committed against civilians happen. Let me just say, though, about the decline issue. Perception is everything, especially in an election year. And the two areas, I agree with Brett, objectively we are not really in decline, certainly not in precipitous decline, but there are two areas where the American public feels anxious, upset. One, the president is right, the American dream. It is more and more difficult if you come out of college with a load of debt to work hard, to find a job, to make your way into the middle class. And when you have kind of glaring issues of inequity and taxation, whatever one feels like it, the perception is that kind of dream of the lawn, the house, the garage is more and more difficult to happen. And that is a source of acute anxiety out there in the heartland. Secondly, I'll come back to Afghanistan. You know, this is a serious issue, actually. America is not in the mood, actually, for nation building elsewhere, even less in the mood than it was when George Bush ran against that. The issue is actually, how do you manage the sense that this has been an unwinnable war under two presidents, it's been not a success, it's been incomprehensible, and the people we thought we were helping have spat in our eye. And that is a serious issue for the American public.
Maybe because the help sort of went awry, and we can discuss that. But let's talk about another incredibly important situation, and that is Iran. It is front and center on everybody's minds right now. Listen to what Mitt Romney said in one of the debates, which seems to have boxed himself in. Let me ask you after we've listened to it.
Look, one thing you can know, and that is if we re-elect Barack Obama, Iran will have a nuclear weapon. And if we elect Mitt Romney, if you elect me as the next president, they will not have a nuclear weapon.
So, Brett, in terms of leadership, does that mean that the next president, if it happens to be Mitt Romney, has committed himself to a military option?
Mitt Romney has committed himself to so many political positions over his career that it's hard to say whether he means this now. It's certainly a view that's popular.
Yes, commit really is not something
I hope whoever is president on January 21st of next year is committed, and President Obama says he is committed to ensuring that Iran does not become a nuclear weapon state. That really doesn't mean puts America in decline, but poses incredible challenges to our position in the region. Creates a spiral of proliferation where in the one place where we really don't want it. So I hope Romney means what he says, and I hope President Obama also means what he says when he makes similar statements.
Well, I agree with Brett completely about the gravity of the issue and the seriousness. The question is, if Obama is on form in the debates, how exactly are you proposing? Are you proposing to parachute into Fordo? Goodbye and good luck. What exactly is it you have in mind, precisely, for your military option? And Mitt Romney said, well, I'm not even the commander-in-chief yet. I hope to be, but I'm not going to tell you. The issue is, of course, actually, talk is cheap when you're simply, dissing diplomacy of any sort, when you're not giving sanctions, which will be biting in a tough way come the summer, when you simply want to say that's weakness, cowardice, and apologizing for America. Try the military option. Tell me exactly what it is you have in mind.
Simon, it's funny because I just wrote a column on the Falklands, and I was reading commentary in April 1982 when Thatcher sent an armada 8,000 miles to the South Atlantic, and the universal view is this is never going to work. There's no way the Brits will be able to liberate those islands. It happened very swiftly.
Similar or different?
There's a difference, actually, between 400 Argentinian troops and sheep and a bloody great silo stuck in a mountain behind Fordo.
And on that note, Simon Schama, Brett Stevens, thank you so much for joining us.